Where do you go when life is hard? What happens when there's a jerk in charge? How do you cope when problems are too large? You find your own crew. You keep pushing through. You find that there is more than just you. At the Inclusion Effect. The Inclusion Effect. Welcome to the Inclusion Effect.
Hello and welcome to the Inclusion Effect. I'm Anna, and I'm here to talk with my guests and with all of you about disability advocacy, inclusion, and the ups and downs of navigating a world that isn't always built for the disability community. Today's guest here with me is Ashley of Virgo Designs. Hey, Ashley.
Hello.
Hey, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your shop?
Yeah, I'm Ashley. I live in Austin. I have an amazing 9-year-old son, and he is my main reason for advocating. Like, let's be real. Also, there are tons of other things about advocacy that just light me up, but he is the origin of all that. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. And you run a shop called Virgo Design. You want to tell us about that?
I do. Yeah. So we've got all kinds of, I call it salty advocacy goodies because I love an F word. I don't shy away from
Same.
feeling salty about things that I feel salty about. So we've got kids apparel, adult apparel, mugs, tote bags, little goodies. Stickers were what we started with. And so I don't know. I love a sticker personally. That's my favorite. So tons of stickers all over everything. And we've got some free resources on the site as well. And some different options for advocating. I'm trying to build more of a community section on the site as well. So anyone that wants mutual aid or is looking for, hey, how can I help someone in the community? I'm hoping to increase visibility that way too.
You have lots of free downloads, which I think are so great. You post a lot about Section 504, which obviously is facing some challenges at the moment. Specifically, one of those 9 states is Texas. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah. Yep. Unfortunately, we led the suit last year, and we're leading the suit again because, of course, we are. So yeah, it's definitely. Oh.
No children, right?
The ghost. No children. My son is at school. Apparently, the ghost is here. They have joined us. Welcome, ghost.
Ghost guests are always welcome as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So far, they seem friendly. Hopefully.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's totally fine. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your diagnosis journey first of all?
Okay, yeah. So I guess we have a few in our family. Personally, I have an ADHD diagnosis that I didn't get until my early 20s. So navigating before was an adventure, navigating after a different one. But it really is so helpful to have that knowledge and that information about yourself. So I'm really grateful that I got it. I definitely wish that I had had it maybe as a kid. I think a lot more things would have made sense to me. I think I would have had probably a lot more support. But grateful to have that now. My husband also diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, diagnosed with autism in his late 30s. Same thing there, like tons of understanding and just like, I mean, I feel like we suspected for a while, but similarly, in speaking with my therapist, it's like, have you ever thought about, that you might have autism? And I'm like, oh yeah, all the time. And I remember her saying like, I don't believe that I've ever spoken with someone who thought that they had autism that didn't have it. So she was like, typically neurotypical people do not wonder if they're neurodivergent. So just something to think about. So that's kind of the neuro framework that we're working with. And then with my son, he has cerebral palsy and epilepsy. And we feel pretty confident that he is neurodivergent as well. We're in the diagnostic process with that, but the genetics are pointing to yes. So we'll see how that goes. But CP diagnosis, that was actually my first kind of jump into advocacy, was just trying to get that. Typically, procedure is not to diagnose until after the age of 2,
Yeah.
which is wild considering that you lose a lot of neuroplasticity around the same time. So the idea that we would wait is wild, but we felt pretty confident that we knew what was going on, and we essentially harassed the pediatrician into a diagnosis, into getting a brain scan, and ultimately that was how we got his CP diagnosis, and then the epilepsy we got as a result of that scan as well. But it was more like we think this is going to be a thing, but we'll just kind of wait and see. And then when he was around 4, his pre-K teacher started noticing what we now know were absent seizures. But at the time,
Yes.
She was just like, something has happened. I'm not understanding what's going on, And what she described, I'm like, oh, that sounds like something like an absence seizure that, they told us about previously. And so, of course, that was our next jump into advocacy, getting the school to understand that not only was that a thing, but a real thing. And just kind of, navigating the medical system in the US, navigating the medical system in Texas, and subsequently the school system.
Yes. Yeah. I have a son who has a seizure disorder as well. Totally different. But he had anoxic seizures a dozen times a day for the first 4 years of his life from severe breath holding spells. And
wow.
absent seizures were something that we dealt with that as well. And it was very similar. We were kind of met with, what are you talking about? This is not a thing. Like, he's just, one person told us he was disassociating. We were like,
yes, yeah.
Maybe sometimes, but not right now.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Of course. Yes. Kids daydream, they zone out. That was one that we heard a lot. It was like, there's just zoning out. And it's like, it's neurological, my guy. That's what's happening.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So you got that a little bit later on. How have those two things played together he's old enough now to be in school. So how has that kind of affected your schooling journey?
Yes. So seizures are totally managed now. We were really lucky to have an amazing neurologist that we've worked with since he was 7 months old. So they know each other really well, and he's built up a lot of trust with him, which I think is huge too. And for us as well, and so we've been able to manage. He hasn't had a seizure that we know of in a couple of years. So that's been super, super helpful. And again, just kind of like trying to educate people that aren't familiar with seizures in general, especially in the school system, has been a journey. His teachers are fantastic. Yeah, his teachers are fantastic. And most people are very willing to learn. And, when they're not, we kind of have to get a little salty and do our thing. But for the most part, especially once we figured everything out and got medication where he needed it to be, where it best served him, things go really smoothly. And then, of course, with CP, it's different for everyone. For him, it's been a lot of trial and error. And again, a lot of okay, I know this is the general idea that you have of what CP is like for someone, but here's what it's like for him, and here's what he needs. And again, most people are extremely willing to be educated, and I appreciate that. And I think that as long as we can all take the child-centered approach, right? Whether it's in an IEP setting, an ARD setting, classroom setting, after school clubs. That's where we've spent most of our time advocating this year. But because he's in third grade, there's a lot of, we all kind of know each other now.
Yeah.
The after school stuff was new, I will say, but it's kind of a thing where you have to remind people sometimes that like we're going to center him. It's not about what works better for them or for us.
Yes.
It's about what assists him have an equitable experience.
So important, because it's really easy to hear a teacher or an aide or even like an administrator say, well, in this classroom, this would be the easiest. And that might be the case, but that might not be what's going to help your child. That's not what's going to get them where they need to be education wise. So I think that's so important.
Right.
Yeah. And he's been in the same school all of elementary school.
He has not, actually.
Oh.
So yeah.
I thought you were going to say yes, and that helped. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild journey. But he started in private pre-K, where we lived at the time. We lived in Lubbock, and we did not qualify for public pre-K. So your options are public or private, and if you don't qualify for public, you go private. So we did that. That was definitely an experience, because I think going into it, we felt like, okay, you probably have and leeway as a parent when you need to advocate that you may not have in public, and it's completely the opposite, or at least that's what our experience was.
That was my experience too.
Yeah, it's wild. In advocating for things like the classroom door, for instance, the pre-K rooms had bathrooms in the classroom, which I think is awesome. But the doors were so incredibly heavy. And their thought process was like, okay, we want to have these doors that automatically close, because sometimes kids forget, and we want to make sure that they have privacy, which love that, absolutely. But the doors were so heavy that most of the kids could not get them open. And it was an issue specifically for our son. And, in asking them like, hey, what can we do about these doors? We were essentially told nothing, because we're not replacing them. And it was like, okay. And their solution at the time was, they had like this classroom tour list essentially, but it was everybody has a job. So one friend is the line leader this week. One friend is counting supplies before they go to recess, or helping the teacher hold the door, things like that. And they were like, we figured it out though. We made it a job to help him with the door when he needs to go to the bathroom. So all he has to do is just like find that friend, ask that friend for help, and then they help him. And I was just like, you made him someone's job?
Yeah.
And now his ability to access the restroom
is dependent on a child.
Yes. So we're dealing with lots of layers here. They are friends. So we've now switched to power dynamic. That's not helpful for him or the other child.
No.
We have created a system in which he's got to ask another child for permission, essentially, to go to the bathroom. And when we're 4, or sometimes when we're 38, task switching can be difficult. So I feel like we could just make the door an accessible door.
That would be
and it's really,
common sense solution.
It's really, yeah. So, and I mean, of course there were, tons of things like that, but when you're dealing with a private school, and this is a conversation I've been trying to have with as many people as possible, especially in Texas, and I think this is true for most states, they are not beholden to any regulations that public schools are. So they do not have to make the building accessible. They do not have to make the bathrooms accessible. They are allowed to have nursing staff that are not nurses, teaching staff that are not certified teachers, and most importantly, they are allowed to deny entry or access, or revoke that entry or access to any student for any reason at any time.
Yes.
And
we were straight up told Addie could not attend our local Montessori preschool. Just straight up told no. They just did not have the staff that could help with her feeding tube. They did not have the staff that could help with her being nonverbal. Straight up told no. We were like, we were offering to pay you so much money, so overpriced, like, and
Right.
it was just a flat out no. And that's when I found out what you're saying is that if you're a private school at all, but a private preschool in this case, you don't have to follow any federal regulations because you're not taking federal money.
No. And like, I hate that that was your experience. It's
Yeah,
not uncommon. Like,
no,
I feel like any person that I've spoken to that is a disability parent or experiences disability themselves has had this conversation with at least one school at some point in their life. And it's incredibly frustrating because it's like, did y'all not know that disabled people exist? Like, we've been around since the beginning of time. Like, you guys have
yeah,
had time to figure out how to get the resources to do these things. And if public schools can do these things on their extremely limited resources, you as a for-profit institution absolutely can.
absolutely.
Um, but they don't because they don't have to. And then let's say your child is admitted to the school and it turns out that your child needs services. They have no obligation to provide those services. They have no obligation to alert you that they think these services need to be provided. They are not evaluating your child for services they're not going to provide. But the public school system will, whether you attend the public school or not. And, you know, a lot of families depend on getting PT, OT, SLP services through the public school. Private schools don't have to provide that, and they often don't. And typically, if they allow it, because they get to allow or not, you're paying for that out of pocket.
Yes,
So it really is not a disability friendly environment at all, in my experience. And
mine as well.
I think that especially with SB 12 and the voucher program that our state has now adopted, it's probably not getting better. I think because again, you know, the state loves to say like we're not cutting funding, we're not taking funding from them, and it's technically true. But funding is based on attendance. So if we have students that have moved from the public school to the private school, they didn't technically take our funding away, but that funding is now gone.
Yes.
So either way, it's not there.
Yeah, I already know your opinion because of social media, but for the podcast's sake, I'll go ahead and say a lot of people love to talk about giving power of education back to the states. And I get in some mental gymnastics how that can make sense. I get how you can get to
Yeah,
that
we're
point,
doing a lot of
especially
flips.
especially if you're big on small government, etc. I get that
Mm,
sentiment, especially if you haven't had to navigate this system yourself as a parent or as a disabled
yes.
individual. The truth of the matter, though, is what happens is essentially what we just talked about in private preschools at a bigger scale. They
Yes.
aren't going to accommodate more than they have to because it's easier for them and because it saves them
Mm-hmm.
money and because in public schools cases, not to be super cynical, but they want to put the money that they do have to things that bring them more attention, more students, more teachers. And that's
Mm-hmm.
programs like sports, that's programs like the facility itself, that's programs like whatever I feel like in Texas it's probably football, I don't know, like, whatever their big
It is
things are.
usually.
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
figured.
Yeah.
I've seen Friday Night Lights. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's not how it works. So they're going to put the bare minimum to our kids because that's not what's attractive to prospective parents, to prospective teachers, to prospective administrators and investors. That's just not. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole trickle down effect of our kids not getting the adequate support they need.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, our educators too, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're
Oh
going through
yeah.
something right now in the current district that I'm in, which is a destination district in Texas for accessible ed. It's why we moved here, which
Wow.
we can circle back
Yeah.
to how we ended up the in between. But they are they just approved cutting services to balance the budget. And again, the issue is bigger than just the board voting for that. The board feels as though their hand was forced through legislation and through, the state withholding funding and, changing funding. And again, it is absolutely true that education has been severely underfunded for decades in Texas. And it feels like every year it kind of gets increasingly worse. So that is absolutely true, but several things can be true at once. And I firmly feel that you cannot call yourself a destination district for accessible education as you cut services. That's not something I'll ever be able to square in this old noggin. So I don't really understand how anyone else could, but that's where we're at. And it's being floated right now as, we have to balance the budget. We are going to eliminate, positions across the board that we feel are making us run, not quite as efficiently and can save us money. And we have to do this. And I do understand. But where I draw the line is saying that, like, we're going to have to make some hard choices. And that hard choice is going to affect this student population. And I think also what they are not completely comprehending is that collaborative classrooms, for instance, don't just benefit the disabled students in those classrooms. That benefits both of the educators in the classroom, and it benefits all students in the classroom because you have two educators in the room. And it's not non-essential. I know it's being viewed that way. And I'm sure you saw the reel that kind of took off about, we need to end inclusion, which will. And unfortunately, there are a lot of parents and educators that feel that way.
Yes.
But your feelings don't get to dictate someone else's access to an education. They just don't. Whether I agree with them or not is irrelevant. And for the record, I don't. But it's not up to anyone to decide, like, you know what? I just don't think that person deserves to be here. Because every kid deserves an equitable education, full stop. And the only thing that provides certain students with access to an equitable education is to have a collab teacher, to have accessible ed teachers, to have push in and pull out services. And yes, the bottom line is the least restrictive environment for a lot of these kids is in the gen ed classroom. And every kid deserves to be where they learn well. And this idea that, like, well, we've got to cut somewhere, so we'll cut this, is baffling to me. And I think it's indicative of this, like, regressive cultural shift that we're going through.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you'd be absolutely off your rocker to not see a connection between what's going on and how we're cutting certain parts of the educational system right now. And like you said, every child you said they deserve it. They're actually, and I know you know this, but they are entitled to it by law. Like, it's not even an option, truly. Even though they find ways to loophole around it. Mm-hmm. Every child is entitled by federal law to free and appropriate education, and a big emphasis on the word appropriate, like an education that serves them and appropriately educates them, and the least restrictive environment. Which, like you said, if they don't have proper teachers, if they don't have proper collaboration teachers, if they don't have the systems in place, children are going to get pulled out, or, I mean, vice versa, pushed into a class that they absolutely cannot thrive in because they can't get the attention they need. It's just, I live in a blue state and we struggle with this here, so.
It's definitely something that I think is just, like, across the board happening. And I think too, unfortunately, a lot of times with states like Texas, we are the testing ground for things like this.
I agree.
And it's a bummer, but what we're seeing, we have to talk about, and we have to figure out a way to fight what we can. And I do want to make sure again that, like, we are centering the students in that conversation and also the educators, because what I think kind of gets lost in the sauce is that there are, for all the horror stories, which again we can circle back to, there are affirming educators that make a huge difference in our kids' lives, and we all need those. We all need those educators. And to feel like your job might be in jeopardy because, oh, this is seen as non-essential is wild to me, because every grown-up that enters that building with the purpose of educating or assisting a kid is essential, period. Like, they just are. And again, our kids, as you said, not only do they deserve this, but it's their right. And at least for now, like, that is still a federally protected right. And yeah. So this idea that, like, oh, we're just gonna do this and, that's gonna be that. It's like, mm-mm.
Yeah, it's a shame. And I definitely think because of Texas's politics, they end up being the first place, or one of the first places, to test these things, see how it goes over, see how much pushback they get, see if they can get people on board. And that's unfortunate for, millions of kids, I'm sure.
Truly. I mean, the to hit back on the current suit against 504, it was filed in Lubbock, which is where we lived before we moved here.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I can tell you there is very much a reason they filed it there. That's where they think they have the highest chance of winning, and that's a pretty educated guess. It's it was not shocking to find out that was where they filed it. I'll put it that way.
That's disappointing.
Yeah.
Is that what drove you out there?
Oh, for sure. I mean, our school experience, my son's school experience, was ultimately what was like, okay, we have to go. And it was traumatizing for him, for sure, and vicariously for us, but ultimately for him. And it is, how can I put this? Because my brain just wants to like say a bunch of curse words.
Yeah.
It is really upsetting the way that some schools are allowed to operate. And it's just kind of like, well, it is what it is the attitude that gets taken, and it just continues. Yeah, it's, I mean, I don't know how deep you want to get into that experience, but it was definitely eye-opening. And it led, us to say, okay, like, where can we go? Where is a safe place? Where is a place that, that values accessible ed and that values all of the students? And, of course you can do all the research in the world, but until you get there and experience it, you don't know.
Yeah.
So leaving there, coming here, we landed at a school called Valley View, which is unfortunately no longer open. They had to close it at the end of last year for budget cuts. So,
gosh.
Yeah, so this was our third school. By this time, of course, like, completely traumatized by, previous school experience, both in private and in public. And we pulled him at semester. We sold our house. We sold most of our things, and we piled into a U-Haul and our car and grabbed our two dogs and drove here. And we had been looking for housing for a while, but we just hadn't found it yet. And at the time, the market here was crazy. So we lived in a hotel for a few weeks, spent Christmas in the hotel. My son loved it. Like, he loved having the tiny tree in the hotel room. He thought that was so cool. And so I'm like, I love this. I love this for you. I found a house to rent. We're able to register, with the public school, but it was all like so quick, right? And, sending the emails that I would normally send to like the accessible education team and the teacher and the office staff, I was like, I don't know if they're going to get these because it's holiday break. Like, I hope they're not checking their email. I hope they're just like
right.
having their own times. But also, I hope somebody sees this. I do, like the get to know me sheets and stuff like that, so that there are no surprises. Because like we talked about it, most people, when they know better, they do better. So it's like, here's all the information you could possibly need. Here's like an info sheet from him in his own words. Can't wait to meet you guys. And I just kind of like crossed my fingers. And the director at the time called me, and it was in the evening, and I could hear like her car, like the door, was open and it was beeping, and she was like, hello. She introduced herself. I'm on my way to a dinner, but I just saw your email. So what are you doing tomorrow? And I'm like, whatever you want me to do.
Anything I need to.
Yes. Where can I meet you? And she was just like, okay, I've talked to this person, this person, this person. We're going to meet you at the school tomorrow so that he can walk it and see what it's going to be like when he starts. And so we can meet you guys and just, figure all this out together. And I was just like, really? Like, what? What do you mean? And this poor woman, she's just like trying to have a very brief, simple conversation with me and schedule something. And I'm just like bawling my eyes out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. And she's like, yeah, sure. But we get to the school, we meet them. And it was like the first time that people hadn't looked over him to talk to us about him.
Oh.
Like, when we walked in, they introduced themselves to him first, right? When they were asking questions about like, well, what do you like to do? Or, what is school like for you? They asked him instead of looking over him and being like, what is he into? What does he like to do? Does he need assistance with this? It's like, he's right there. You can ask him. We didn't have to do that. And it seems like such a small thing, but it meant the world to us, and more importantly to him.
That's huge.
Because
yeah.
So we knew we were in the right place. And, school started, and it was like, it's funny because usually I notice accessibility issues like immediately. I did not notice that the stairs leading up to the school only had railing on one side. But later on in the week, railing appeared on the other side. So when I did think, about it and look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, good. Okay, check that off. Like, that's good to go. And a year and a half later, I was talking with the principal outside, and then she just like casually offhand mentioned that rail was put in for him because they noticed that, like, oh, well, when he's going up the stairs, if he has to go up the stairs on the side, the rail is on his left side, and that's not really helpful to him. So we need to put in another rail. No one said anything to us.
That's
no
amazing.
one, made a big deal. Like, if she hadn't made that offhand comment just randomly to me, I would not have ever known that they did that. And again, like, that's exactly what it should be, right? Like, we should already have, everything should already be accessible. But it meant the world to me that they were thinking about how they could make his experience accessible. And I didn't have to go to them and say, hey, can you put this in, and then fight back and forth. And, 2 years later, we're still talking about it, right? It was just done.
And they didn't assign a child to help him up the stairs.
Yes, exactly. And that is so indicative of what the culture at this school was. It was so inclusive, it just by design, and frankly, due to, efforts of all the people that worked in that building. And so we were like, okay, like, we're gonna buy a house. This is it. Bought our house. We were unpacking boxes in our house, and we got word that the district had chosen to close the school to try and balance the budget.
I was scared you were going to say that.
Yeah. We were like, wait, what? And it seems so silly, right? Like, it couldn't have been that magical, but it was. Like, the people in that building and the culture they created gave my son back to himself. And that is like the ultimate gift. Because, like, yes, of course, as parents, we had increased peace of mind. Like we had excellent communication with them, and we knew that like he was being taken care of and he was having an equitable experience, and on top of that, a good experience. But ultimately, what they gave him was the ability to be himself, to be confident, and to enjoy going to school. And he hadn't really felt that before. And we're still kind of unraveling the extent of the trauma that he went through because he doesn't super share, you know. And then every once in a while we'll be like building Legos or something, and he'll say, like, did you know that blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, oh my God, I did not. But of course you can't, you know,
You can't
super
freak out.
react.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I'm
my
just like,
heart.
oh, tell me more. Okay. Wow, thanks for telling me about that, you know. And of course internally you're like, oh my gosh, what? But that trauma was healed by people that did not inflict it. And I will be grateful to those people forever and ever and ever. I think I have made them uncomfortable at this point because I don't ever miss a chance to be like, oh, hey, by the way, remember that you did this for us. Still love you. Like, let me know if you need a kidney. And it's just, it really was a magical place. And when they closed our school, they did what they called a blend with another elementary school. And so this is our first year as a blended school. So there are a lot of, I think, growing pains in merging two communities that I think were fairly different. Both were diverse communities for sure. But I think just like culturally and maybe politically, there are some differences for sure. And everybody's trying to figure that out. I think everyone is trying to figure out spacing, and, you know, educating each other and trying to find common ground in those spaces is challenging for sure. But I think everybody's, for the most part, is like doing their best and everyone's just trying. So getting the news that the board was, or is, I guess, intending on eliminating positions that specifically from our school that they find to be duplicates, was pretty upsetting because they're not duplicates. We have, you know, two schools put together as one. So
Yeah.
naturally we need more staff.
Yes.
And that I think was really frustrating. And then of course, as said, you know, eliminating paras and reducing other providers of services. That's just, I'm searching for like a positive thing to say, or,
It
you know,
sucks.
like I'm trying to find some kind of like understanding for that, but I can't. I don't know if it's because I'm just
No.
an old salty dog or what it is, but I can't find an excuse for you guys for that. I can't.
No, they already cut the school completely. They blended it with another school, and then they're trying to take even more. That sucks.
And I think, again, I do want to see the same energy from parents when it comes time to vote for legislators. And I want to see the same energy, you know, that some of them use on Facebook groups to advocate for non-inclusion classrooms. I would love to see you take that energy and use it for good and contact your lawmakers and get them to up that funding. If they don't, please stop voting. Don't vote for them. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Because the dehumanizing and demonizing of disabled kids and accessible educators, when that energy should be directed at legislators that are refusing to fund your schools, is wild to me. Like, I need you to take that energy and put it there because that's where it goes.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not our children's fault. It's not the educator's fault that they cost money. It's nobody's fault. Like, everything costs money. But for whatever reason, I know the reason, it's ableism, but for whatever reason, they have become scapegoats because they cost money, because they take up space, when in reality, that's their right. They have every reason in the world to take up space and to cost money. Every child costs money in the school system. That's like, just because it's not a for-profit institution does not mean that things don't cost money. That doesn't change that, and that's on
Oh,
legislation.
totally.
It's
Yes,
wild, and it is
exactly.
misplaced. You're absolutely right.
I think it's, and to your point earlier on, people that haven't navigated that system, like if you have never had to advocate for your child's place in a classroom or your own place in a classroom, you may not understand what that's like. And like, I'm happy for you that you have never had to fight for space in a room that others just get to be in.
Yeah.
However, at this point, again, like Beyonce's internet is free. Like you can Google whatever you want. The library loves to have visitors. Like you can figure it out. I promise you can. And there are
Please
so
figure
many
it
of
out.
us. Yes. And there are so
We
many
are
of us
handing
that
you
when
this
we
info.
have, right. And when we have the capacity to do so, like there are so many of us that are happy to educate on
Yes.
what this is actually like. And really all anyone else has to do is just like, listen, like open your mind, open your heart, expand your consciousness, and just listen to the lived experiences of people that have been through things you haven't. It's pretty simple, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So how has his school year been going so far this year then?
A lot of adjustments for sure.
Yeah.
And he has his like group of friends, which these kids, oh my gosh, like they are so funny and so cool. And of course I'm completely biased
Of
here,
course.
but I've never met cooler kids. Like he has a bestie that rides to school with us every morning. And it's just, it's fantastic to watch these kids support each other through the transition that they're going through, and also just like through being a person that exists in the world, because that shit is hard. Like it's so hard to be a person, and it's really hard to be a kid. And I think a lot of times we forget what that's like.
Yeah.
And I think that them having each other is really, really cool. And it's been really neat to see.
Awesome. Oh, I'm so happy he has friends. I'm hoping that the school grows past these growing pains and is able to include everybody and not cut too much.
Yeah, same. I'm really, really hoping that we can get some clarity from the board on what their plans are, and that if there are things we need to fight, that, we can fight. And maybe, hopefully, we'll be pleasantly surprised, and that would be super cool. I don't know. My pattern recognition says no, but my heart says to hope for that. So
I hope so. Oh my gosh. Ugh. So what does he think about your business?
He is pretty involved in it. A lot of the things he makes with me, or I'll make something and he'll be like, no.
Not that one, Mom.
Like, I don't think so. And that has really kind of evolved too. And like to what we were talking about with like centering the disabled experience in what you do. It's the whole thing started out with we were celebrating World CP Day. And up until that point, we just kind of treated it like a holiday in our family. We read books about, people with CP. We did the shirts. We did we did it all. We would take cookies to his class and we would do like a presentation. And he always seemed to really enjoy it. And when he was 4, he told us he hated it. And I was just like, instantly, I'm like, oh my God, of course. But I had never been through that. And I was just kind of like fumbling my way through and guessing and just trying to like celebrate his disability instead of making it this taboo thing. But he didn't want that. And he didn't really know before he was older, like how to express that to us. And communication was a struggle in the beginning. He was non-speaking. We tried modified sign for a while, but at the time, he was really only able to manipulate his fingers on his right hand. And so we, again, like just like with gestures and sounds and facial expressions, we knew what he was trying to say, but it made it really hard for him to communicate with other people. We switched to AAC. I want to say it was the LAMP app is what he used. And it was just like communication exploded. And then from there, verbal communication exploded. And so we reached a point where I just asked him, like, how do you want to be heard? Like, do you want to just use your iPad? Do you want to use your vocal words? Do you want to do both? Like, what do you want? And he said he wanted to communicate vocally. So, like, that's what we went with. But it was around that time that he expressed to us, like, he didn't want extra attention because of his disability, and he didn't want to educate other people about his disability. And since he's gotten older, he's kind of elaborated on that. And it's essentially what I get from it is like, he's already in class with them every day. They know what CP is like for him because he has CP and he's there.
Yeah.
I don't need to step in and read them a book and give them, green cookies because it's go green for CP. We don't need to do that. And he doesn't want that. And I was just like, I cannot believe that I ever did that or
right now listening to you tell me this.
Like, I can't believe I ever did that or thought that, like, I was helping, because maybe that would have been great for somebody else, but it wasn't for him. And when he was able to tell me that, I'm like, oh my, please always tell me this stuff. Because, like, I am doing my best, but I am gonna fuck up. Like, it is gonna happen. Yeah. And I need you to always tell me when I do. And that was so helpful to me because it's just like, I was like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea. Okay. So like, let's do this a different way. And like, there have been times where he's asked me to go to his class and read We Move Together. And
I don't know that one. I'm writing it down.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's so, so good.
I love all the disability children's books.
Yes. The representation in that book is amazing. Like, every body type that you can think of, every like type of human being that you can imagine is in these illustrations. And it's not just like, oh, these inequities exist. It's like, here are things we can do about it. And the authors of the book also have a resource on their website that is completely free. And it's full of lesson plans for educators or parents or whoever that want to take the conversation beyond reading the story. So like, it is amazing. So there are times where he's asked me to do things like that. But for him, it was like, I don't want it to be focused on me. Like, I want you to advocate. I don't want it to always be about, I'm here for my disabled child. And I was just like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I get that. Like, thank you for this note, right?
Yeah.
Because I needed to know that. I want to show up for him in whatever ways empower him most. And so if that's how I do that, absolutely. Like, let's go. So, I mean, it's definitely a learning curve. And he may come to me at some point later on and just be like, I really, like, could you tone it down with the, because I'm always wearing something like this. And so far he's into it. But, there may come a day where he's like, that's actually not how I need you to advocate for me. I need you to do it this way. And if that happens, I'm in. Until then, it's all advocacy, everything on my body all the time.
Yep.
I feel like it's a great way to start conversations with people too.
Absolutely.
I've had so many people ask me about like the neurodiversity is natural. They're like, what do you mean by that? And it's like, well, what I said, but also, here's what I mean. Let's talk about it. What do you think?
Yeah.
Do you know anybody that's neurodiverse? Like, what's your experience with it? And more often than not, they are extremely helpful, like connecting conversations. And again, sometimes you might find yourself taking off your glasses and your ring and putting them in your pocket, getting ready to knuckle up with someone, but that's pretty rare. Most of the time it's a really like productive, helpful conversation. And that's really what I want. And I also want, if I'm out at the coffee shop or whatever, the person standing behind me might really need to be reminded that people support them. And, I would love to do that. I would love to remind people that they are seen and that they are loved and supported, even if it's in a silent way, like wearing a t-shirt or whatever,
Yeah. I love that so much. I will say two things. One, the biggest thing I got from that story, I think the reason I got goosebumps is because, like, my biggest takeaway is that you are fostering such an open environment where he feels comfortable being like, you need to chill. Like, I hate this
Yeah,
and I feel safe telling you that. And I could tear up right now. I love that so much. Addie is totally nonverbal, but she's right now we're in speech. She goes to speech 3 times a week, once at her preschool and twice in a private one that we pay for, because she is getting really frustrated that she can't communicate. And she uses a bit of
yes,
sign language, a bit of AAC, and she's just starting to use some verbal cues. And so we're trying to really encourage that. We dropped PT and OT besides at her school. We dropped everything except speech because we can tell that she wants to communicate. So we're trying to figure that out
yeah,
right now. And I hope that when she's able to communicate, I could literally cry right now. I love that so
Aw,
much, Ashley.
let it
Like,
out.
he was so safe telling you that. And also, I do the same thing with World Down Syndrome Day. It's next month. I'll be going to her classroom. I'll be shouting it from the rooftops. And I hope that someday, I don't think this will be Addie. She loves being the center of attention. But if it ever is, I hope she could be like, chill, mom. Like, this is not cool. Like, my 10-year-old loves to tell me I'm cringe. I hope that someday if Addie thinks I'm being cringe, she can be like, that's enough. Cut it out. So I think that's amazing. I love that so much.
I feel like he definitely is very used to me being cringe because that's kind of like my speed. That's where I operate.
Same. It's millennials in their 30s. We're cringe. It's fine. It's
You
what I
know,
do. It's what I do.
it's who we are.
It's okay.
We can't help it. This is the vibe of the collective. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it is what it is.
But I love that too, and I really like appreciate you saying that because that's more than anything. That's what I want for him is to always feel
Yeah.
safe to tell me anything, especially if it's something that I need to correct.
Yeah, that we can change, that we can
'Cause
help
I
easily.
think, yeah. And for me, the idea of like advocating in a way that, yeah, my intentions, I know what they are, right? But at the end of the day, my intentions don't really matter. What matters is the results
Yeah.
and how it affects the people that I'm advocating for. So if the result or the effect is not good, then I don't want to do it that way, right? And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what my intentions were or like what I was thinking. So I don't know. I just like I really love getting to be his cheerleader and his
Yeah.
supporter, and like he's so cool. Like he's so cool, and I can't believe that like I get to know him, much less like raise him. Are you serious? Like I get to
Yes.
do this for the rest of my life? Okay, like this is amazing.
I love that. I think
And
it's something that both parents of typical children and disability parents kind of maybe not forget, but kind of subconsciously know and don't always acknowledge consciously is that we all of us have as moms, hopefully as good moms, I guess I'll say, have the same goal, and that is to help our children show up in the world, grow into these successful little people, help them be the best them, and help them have a safe and loving home. And the difference is that people like you and I are yelling about it on the internet because our children have a bit more of an uphill battle. And that sucks, but we're all reaching towards the same goal. And so even though it might look different, you were showing up with cookies and reading books, and he said, chill on that, pump the brakes. That's the same thing that parents of kids who are totally neurotypical are trying to do. I'm trying to do the same thing with my 5th grader. You know what I mean? I'm trying to do the same thing with my 2 preschoolers. And it just looks different sometimes. It's all the same goal at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think now, you know, having the shop, making clothes and stuff, like right now he is really obsessed with the teddy bears that we have that have like the
I
matching
love those.
t-shirts. And every day he's like, I think I need another one. I think I need one more. One of his like true loves of his life is a plushie. Like he has never met a plushie he does not like. He has probably thousands of them at this point, but they all have names. He knows where they are in the gigantic pile. And so what's been really cool is getting to share that with him. And again, knowing that like I'm doing this in a way that feels affirming to him and to myself and to the community. That's been like so fun. And of course, like creatively, it's fun. I get to have an outlet for that. I get to connect with people like you that I may never have met otherwise. And
Yeah.
that's been huge for me personally, selfishly, to get to make these connections within the community that I may not have made otherwise. The internet is really gross and really dark. And the whole, ugh, I always think of I may be dating myself severely here, but the dark sided meme from, was it Wife Swap? Where the woman is like, it's dark sided, it's gargoyles, it's demons. Like, usually when I think of like a lot of what happens on the internet, I'm like, it's dark sided. Like, I picture her yelling, it's dark sided. And it is. But it also is this like fantastic way of connecting with
Yeah.
other parents because it can be isolating, right? And a lot of people feel like they don't have community locally. And it's really amazing to be able to connect with people and share experiences and share what we've learned and grow together, especially if you can't have that like in your, local life or IRL or, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. So that's been really cool too, because him, advocating with me and like, what I make to put in the shop and what he likes and what he's into. Of course, a lot of the messaging is me, but a lot of it's him too. And
Yeah.
getting to do that together and then getting the bonus of like getting to meet other people through that and gaining this like entire community has been amazing. Like it's everything.
Yeah, I agree. I have found some of my best friends online. I have a group chat when my phone's not broken. My phone's broken right now. But I have a group chat with 3 other Down syndrome moms whose kids were born the same like general time frame. Like they're all going to be turning 4 or just turned 4. And we talk every single day. Once a year, we're from all over the country and we come together. You know what I mean? And like I met them
Oh,
on
love that.
Facebook, actually dating myself, honestly. But like I met them on Facebook of all things. And a lot of the parents that I know of kids with Down syndrome in my local area have, and I'm so happy for them, but have healthy, I guess I'll say, kids with Down syndrome. And Addie's journey has not been
Gotcha.
that. And so
Yeah.
she's had some, different complications. And I've been able to connect with people who also have less than healthy kids with Down syndrome. And Addie's doing great right now, but she still has some extra stuff going
So
on. And
glad.
so I think it's been an amazing resource. I just posted a reel this morning of somebody in my comments calling my kids the R word. The internet is absolutely
Saw
dark
that.
side.
Mm,
Yeah. Like at this point, I can't
yeah.
even say I'm bothered by it. It's just more like, let me raise awareness. Let me tell you why this sucks. Let me tell you
Right.
why I'm out here posting about this. A lot of it is totally wife swap dark sided gargoyles and everything.
Yes.
But it has its good points too. It absolutely does. It's important to remember that.
Totally. And yeah, the R word, like there's so many words we could bring back, you guys. Like,
So many.
why is that? Why is that what we're,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I remember posters in my elementary school in like the early 2000s that said like end the R word and choose another word and stuff. Like I remember that
Mhm.
25 years ago. So it's 26 years ago, I guess. So it's crazy that that's happening all over again. That's a whole other spiel, though.
Yeah, I know. I could go on and on and on, as I often do.
Same. Hence
But
why I have a podcast.
right, like, I mean, it's just, there's a reason we yap on the internet on the daily. It's upsetting.
Yeah.
But again, that's why we have to just keep being loud and keep showing up.
Yeah.
And because unfortunately, people that use the R word or, people that are advocating for ending inclusion or, maybe just super enjoying being racist or homophobic or ableist or transphobic, they're feeling really empowered to
Really
be
safe.
loud right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that it's our job to feel at the very least as empowered and to be just as loud.
I agree.
Because we can.
Yeah, we can and we should. And I'm sure that they feel like their sense of, how would I put this nicely so that YouTube doesn't flag me? Their sense of security is growing. Their sense of being with like-minded people is growing. And I think that should be giving us all the more reason to shout our children's worth and advocate loudly.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. I love that, Ashley. Okay, thank you so much. I've kept you so long. I'll just ask, I guess, one little wrap-up question. What
Sure.
do you think? Actually, I'll ask you a couple. Sorry. Okay, so
No,
first
please.
of all, what do
Let me
you
have it.
wish people knew about CP, or what's like one common misconception that you think people think they know about CP that they don't have right?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so many things. My ADHD brain is just like, oh,
I
everything's firing right now. So first, I will say, when we do the Get to Know Me packet for my son every year, like he is totally involved. And one of the things that I ask him is like, what do you want them to know about you, like just him? And then like, what do you want them to know about what it's like to have CP for you? And his answer so far, every year, is always the same. And it's I'm just a cool kid. Like my body and my brain are a little bit different, but I'm just a cool kid. I'm just me. And so I feel like number one, like that's it, right? And I think really the common misconception for a lot of people is that CP is one thing. And a lot of people, you know, when you say cerebral palsy, there's a certain thing that they picture. And the truth of the matter is, like, there are so many different ways that CP manifests just within each subtype, right? So, just like with anything else, just like with people in general, it's different for everyone. And there are, like, I find it odd that it's called or classified rather as non-degenerative because, yes, it doesn't progress in that sense. But as people get older, right, like there are changes that shift. There are changes that can happen with access to care or losing access to care. There are changes that can happen with different treatments. And so it's not, quote, curable, and it's not going to progress in the way that people typically think that it does. But when you look at aging, for instance, right? Like our bodies go through changes when we age. Our musculoskeletal system goes through changes, our neurological system. And when you're living in a body that already has certain difficulties related to that, obviously those things are going to change. So just like with any other disability, like it's fluid, it's dynamic. All of our capacity shifts every day. And so I think with CP, like a super common misconception is just like that it presents one way or it's one thing. And it's not. It's this vast array of experiences for people. So if you're a person that wants to know more about CP, go hang out with people with CP. Do some research. Find me, DM me. Like I will tell you whatever my son is comfortable with me telling you. Because that's the other thing. Like I talked to him about how I was going to come on, and you know, I was like, a lot of this is probably going to be related to you, because like, let's be honest, you're the star here.
Yes.
So what do you feel comfortable with me talking about? Is there anything that you don't feel comfortable with me talking about? You know, and I kind of got his permission to speak about certain things, and there were certain things that he was like, yeah, that's not for you. um, so I think too, you know, any questions you have, like I'm in. You have questions about ADHD, you have questions about autism, like I'm here. And there are tons of other people that are willing to educate you about those things. But if you're curious, that's where I would start. Follow disabled creators, like look for your information there if you're interested in lived experiences. If you're looking for like facts and figures, there are websites that you can go to. But if you want to know what an actual disabled experience is like, my advice would be to talk with and center disabled people.
I love that. I follow so many. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased towards Down syndrome and autism because, that's what's going
Right.
on in my house. But I follow
Yeah,
so
totally.
many creators who are living that life. And I think it's so important. I cannot recommend that enough. Like, if you're curious about it, that's where you want to get your information from. When
Yes.
I found out that Addie was going to have Down syndrome when I was pregnant, I followed tons of parents of kids with Down syndrome, and that's what I was going through, and that's great. And that's also, what I post still. But I
Yeah.
have since learned I can follow the people themselves and get it directly from them, and I love that. So I think that's so
Yes.
important. Great
I
reminder.
love it.
Yes. Okay. And what do you think is the most rewarding part of this journey that you're on?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
super easy. Totally easy, actually. Obviously getting to be his parent, number one, hands down. Other bonuses include becoming assertive because I was not at all.
Oh,
Like, and I am now. I
yeah.
am, I fully like acknowledge and stand in my power now in a way that I don't think I ever would have without becoming an
That.
advocate. So selfishly, that's been a benefit to me. But
That's amazing.
number
Yeah.
one, ultimate, like, best, most wonderful thing about this experience is that I got to know and get to know my son on a level that I think a lot of parents of non-disabled kids miss out on. I know what his facial expressions mean. I know what his body language means. I know what certain sounds mean. There is a level of just like understanding that I get to have with him that I think parents that don't need to pay that close attention and just, it's not that they wouldn't or that they don't want to, it just isn't something that they've ever needed to do.
Yeah.
But because that was how we got to communicate, I know my son on a level that I may not have gotten to know him otherwise. And I will be grateful for that forever because, like, this kid is, he really is just the shit. He is the ultimate, like, I love him. And it is my life's greatest joy to get to witness him and know him in this way. So this entire experience provided me with that. And I don't know if I would have been given that privilege otherwise.
That's amazing. I love that. Ashley, thank you so much for sharing and thank you for getting on the podcast with me. For anybody
Thank
listening,
you
where
for
can they
having
find?
me.
Of course. Where can everybody find you at?
I am on Instagram at Virgo Design ATX. I have, of course, the online shop, virgodesignatx.com. And I'm not on Facebook anymore. I got kicked out of too many parent groups and I decided it wasn't for me. So you will not find me there. I missed the boat on TikTok and on Twitter or X or whatever that man is
Yeah.
calling it now. So really just Instagram and the website, honestly. But yes, come and find me, join our community.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And to everybody else, if you've made it this far, please follow, leave me 5 stars, and share this with a friend or two. Follow on social media. My TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook are at The Inclusion Effect. And thank you to Ashley and to everybody else for helping me build this community
Thank
of
you.
passionate advocates.